Today we're sewing up a free pattern from Unfettered Patterns, the half-zip sweatshirt. With its high neck collar, drop shoulders, and slightly cropped length, it's a cozy yet stylish piece anyone would love. For this tutorial, I've made mine in a lightweight stretch velvet with about 15% horizontal stretch. It's a cozy layering piece that feels as good as it looks. I also sewed another version in fleece with less stretch and it turned out beautifully. I did make a few tweaks to the pattern. I added 2.5 inches to the bodice length and finished it with a traditional hem. And instead of ribbing on the cuffs, I used the main fabric. I'll be sharing all those pattern adjustments and measurements with you in this video. So pick your favorite fabric, follow along, and let's sew this stylish half-zip sweatshirt together. Place your yoke pieces right sides together with the back piece along the shoulder seams and pin in place. Sew the shoulder seams with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finish the raw edges together and press them toward the back. Along one long edge of the collar, I'm going to apply bias tape to finish the raw edge, just encasing that raw edge in between the fold of the bias tape, from one side to the other. Then I'll edge stitch along the fold of the bias tape from one side to the other. Here are my yoke and my back pieces opened out away from each other at the shoulder seam with the right side of the fabric facing me. I'm going to place the unfinished raw edge of the collar right sides together with the neckline and pin in place. Sew the collar to the neckline with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. The short side seams of the collar as well as the main seam that we just sewed will eventually be concealed within the collar. So I'm just going to finish those outer edges of the yoke from the collar seam to the bottom of the yoke on both sides. Here is my collar, the main collar seam, and the finished side edges of the yoke. The pattern calls for 3/8 inch wide stay tape, or you could just use fusible interfacing. I'm going to apply it to the wrong side of the fabric from the notch in the collar to the bottom of the yoke, on both sides. Now I'll turn the garment to the front side and start attaching the zipper. Placing the zipper right sides together with the fabric so that the top zipper stop is 1/8 of an inch below the collar notch. Continue pinning down the zipper tape so that the bottom zipper stop is 5/8 of an inch above the raw edge of the yoke. Then we'll sew the zipper in place from top to bottom, sewing close to the zipper teeth. Now one side of the zipper is installed. We'll repeat the exact same process to sew the other half of the zipper tape to the opposite side of the yoke, pinning in place in the same way. Then we'll sew the other half of the zipper tape in place in the same way as we did for the other side. Fold your zipper tab piece right sides together and sew one short edge with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Turn the tab piece right side out, poking out the sewn corner. Finish the long raw edges together. I'll open up my zipper and turn out the zipper tape so that the full zipper tape is facing me. Choose either side of the zipper tape to apply the zipper tab. I'm going to place the top finished edge of the zipper tab right sides together with the full zipper tape so that the top finished edge sits at the notch. And I want the finished edges of the zipper tab to align with the outer edges of the zipper tape and pin in place all the way down. I'll sew my zipper tape in place from top to bottom right along my original zipper stitches. Now with the zipper tapes still laid out flat, Fold the collar piece in half right sides together, folding it at the notch. Align the raw edges and pin in place. Repeating on both sides. Make sure that any zipper tape extending beyond the top zipper stop is oriented out toward the raw edge of the collar, so that when the seam is sewn, you won't be able to see the zipper tape. Then we'll sew from the top fold to the bottom finished edge of the collar, and I'm going to be sewing right in line with my original zipper stitches. Then we can turn the collar right side out, poking out the top corners. Now on the inside of the collar at the main seam, I'm going to make sure that that seam allowance is pressed upward toward the collar, and I'm going to place that finished bound edge of the collar on top of that seam. And I'll pin in place straight across, pinning from the outside. I'm just pinning along the main seam, making sure that I'm catching the finished folded edge of the collar on the inside as I go. Now that the collar is pinned from the outside and the inner edge of the collar is caught in the pinning, I'm going to stitch in the ditch from the outside of the collar, from one side of the zipper to the other. In the pattern illustration, you'll see top stitching on either side of the zipper and along the top edges of the collar all the way around. Go ahead and do that top stitching now if you prefer, or leave it out. Place your lower front piece right sides together with the upper front piece and pin in place. Sew this seam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, finish the raw edges together and press the seam allowance down toward the bottom portion. Here's the horizontal front bodice seam that we just sewed straight across. And I've pressed the seam allowance down toward the bottom portion. From the front of the garment, we're going to top stitch that seam allowance in place, from one side seam to the other with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Here are my front and back bodice pieces opened out away from each other at the shoulder seam with the right side of the fabric facing me. Place your sleeve right sides together with the front and back bodice pieces along the arm side and pin in place. Repeat on both sides for both sleeves. Sew the sleeves in place with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Finish the raw edges together. Place the front and back pieces right sides together along the side seam as well as the underarm seam and pin in place. Sew with a 3/8 inch seam allowance and finish the raw edges together and press them toward the back of the garment. Since I'm not using ribbing for this project and I'm using the main fabric to create my cuff, I extended the cuff piece to be the same width as the bottom of the sleeve pattern piece, just adding that difference to create a new pattern piece. I'll fold the cuff piece right sides together along the shorter edges and sew the short edges with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then I'll fold the cuff in half wrong sides together, aligning the raw edges. Place the cuff right sides together with the bottom of the sleeve and pin in place. Sew the cuff to the bottom of the sleeve with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Leave a gap somewhere in your stitches to insert the elastic. For the cuff, I'm using 1.5 inch wide elastic, and I've cut my elastic to the length of the original cuff piece. I'll secure one short end of the elastic and lace it through the cuff through the gap I left in my stitches. Then I'll overlap the short ends of the elastic just slightly and zigzag in place. Pull the elastic entirely inside the casing and sew closed the gap in your stitches. Then you can finish the raw edges together all the way around. Along the bottom edges of the jacket, I've gone ahead and finished the raw edge all the way around. Now you can turn the raw edge to the inside to your preferred hem. I'm going to turn it to the inside by about 5/8 of an inch and pin all the way around. Then I'll sew the hem in place all the way around close to my finishing stitches. And now the half zip jacket is complete. Thank you for watching this sew along. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future sewing tutorials, and I'll see you in the next video.